The door. Now listen to me. Call the person that was coming to get you. Tell them they don't need to come. All right? Yes. Okay? So go ahead and call them. I'm going to take you to jail, and I'm going to impound the car.
Before that, she needs to go to...
No.
But I can't call them if you don't open the door.
Why can't you?
Because I will not put my...
Use your phone. It's in your lap right there.
I just don't want to put my hands down. I'm really sorry.
You're just really strong.
No. I've just been way too many videos of problems.
But you're not black. Remember, we only kill black people. Yeah, we only kill black people, right? All the videos you've seen, have you seen any white people get killed? You have.
Umbrella. She's up. Whole nother level of shit.
What is good, my people? We are live, back again with another episode of The Forecast. Now, first and foremost, I want to say down to the people in Houston, I hope everybody is okay. Everybody who's looking for loved ones who can't find them, I hope they're okay. And I hope they get in contact with you soon. People's homes have been destroyed and all of that.
This storm intensified quickly, making landfall overnight.
This whole front area was grass earlier. Now we've got about 2 feet of water.
Behind me, you can see, wow, this is one of the major highways in Houston.
The house is flooding, and it's rising way too fast.
I just was in such denial. I didn't put anything up. I didn't grab anything.
An alarming situation is playing out right now in Crosby, Texas. Explosions and smoke at a flooded chemical plant.
The situation they warned that might happen is happening. You have the firefighters getting out their air canisters and their masks.
The weather in Beaumont has been deteriorating all day long.
We were so happy, God had to answer our prayers.
You can see these large helicopters that have been plucking people out of the sky. We have rafts here for first responders that will go neighborhood to neighborhood.
I'm just ready to get home to my baby.
We couldn't find him, and once our dive team got there, it was too treacherous to go under and look for him.
He said the van was bobbing in the water. That's how deep it was, and he kept yelling at the kids. He can hear the kids screaming and crying, trying to get out of the van.
4 mega shelters are operating, 3 in Houston, 1 in Dallas.
I was like, if we can't get out, we have to figure out a way. I wasn't gonna give up on my son. I was crying hysterically. I thought I was gonna die.
I'm just very thankful that we're here safe.
I've lost my own home, and I'm thankful my children are safe. It's just, I have nowhere to go.
Thank you very much. Good to see you. We're signing a lot of documents now to get money into your document. 7.9 billion.
But it looks like round about 100,000 affected homes. That's a big number.
All my assets in my house, all gone, with no insurance.
I left the garage full of stuff. I keep thinking, what's in there?
Just to watch all your stuff being kind of floating away pretty much our entire lives.
We just passed the $15 million mark. I've said it so many times before, but I think the worst times bring out the best in people.
Whatever we can do to help these people in a time of need, that's what we're going to do.
And, even some people come back home and there's a goddamn alligator in their fucking house because everything flooded out. Now, even this is an example of why our people, black people, need to start waking up and taking control of our own situations, our own lands, our own everything. All this stuff is happening, and we're going to start experiencing more devastating natural disasters the more that they take oil and take natural resources out of the ground. Now, a lot of people have been talking about Joel Osteen and how this tragedy has exposed him and people like him as the frauds that they are.
After getting shamed into letting people into his church, Joel Osteen went to be with the people who he locked out of his church.
Oh, good old Joel.
You know what I'm saying?
Gonna show his pearly whites, those pores that he let into his stadium.
Yeah, and somebody noticed how nervous he looked before the interview started.
He's like, He's looking around like, yo, are they stealing stuff? He's looking around like, oh, my beautiful church.
He's like, goddamn, I've never seen this many black people in my church, goddamn. What's going on here? She look like an NBA game. What's going on? I'm nervous.
He's rocking side to
Hey.
side, like, yeah.
He's like, hey, listen, guys, we don't have any hot sauce. Sorry.
Because he's always on the podium far away from people.
Yeah. Now he's like in very close
yeah.
contact.
Like,
yeah.
Come close, take those envelopes, though.
People are coming in by the school bus loads tonight.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about
Lots of bus loads. They won't stop coming.
Yeah.
Just endless.
They just keep coming, and
every bus, each one is poorer and poorer. I don't know how to handle it.
They keep asking me for chicken. I don't have any.
We're just getting started, taking whatever the city asks us to take in, and we feel blessed to be here to help these people, kind-hearted, great people, and this is what it's all about. It's one thing to talk. I talk a lot, but you know what? I love to be able to show it like this.
Yeah. I bet he caught your ass out there. Now you want to show it like this.
We got chains on the door, like, stay out.
Yo.
I'm taking 9,000 plus people tonight.
He heard that number, he was like, oh, 9,000, my God.
She's like, yo.
He's like, I bought 80 cots. Like, what the
Is this going to be another temporary spot? When you're talking about being in the long haul, how long is that?
Well, I hope this is temporary because we don't have proper showers and food and dormant.
He's like, listen, y'all niggas can't stay here. Hey, this is my church. This ain't your house.
This nigga about to call 9,000 Ubers.
He said there's no showers. He's like, do you smell them? They stink.
Yeah.
What is your hope for people? Is this going to be another temporary spot? When you're talking about...
You see, he's that little grimace, like, It's like you got relatives staying with you, like, you know what? I missed my flight. I'm staying another week. You're like, I love you, auntie, but you got to get the out of here.
I know with Alicia last time in 2001 when we housed 3,000, we had to just work with people and hotels and different things to get these people somewhere to go on with their life. But
Yo, my
you
man.
guys look outside, like, oh, the sun's out, so I guess y'all can listen.
Go, yo.
They're gonna dry out eventually.
Yo, water's drying up already. Y'all niggas got to go.
He said hotels. He's like, yes, we can get y'all the out of here.
Out of here, B.
I mean, he got money to put everyone in hotels, right?
He definitely does.
He could put all of Houston in hotels.
Yep.
Why don't he just do that? Because he likes to put his money on his bed and roll around naked.
That's right. Come on, let's be real. I'm Joel Osteen, and I love my paper.
It's like the Bible says, first you must secure the bag.
Now, even though most younger people, regardless of race or gender in America, have been moving away from religion more and more, but this brings up an issue that we really need to address in the black community, and that is religion. Now, even though it's more so with the older generation, I have this discussion with my mom all the time. And to a degree, I understand where they're coming from, because in their generation, the church was somewhat a place of a safe haven for them. They can rely on the church to help the community. But in this day and age, the church is not helping anybody. In fact, the church, in my opinion, is hurting our community. Now, I'm not the type of person who wants to change your beliefs or destroy whatever you believe in, because whatever you believe in, that's your business. I don't really care. But in my opinion, I think that religion is nothing but poison that is destroying our community from within. Two of the most biggest divisions that we have in the black community is between gender and religious ideals and religious beliefs. To me, we have to be sick to be following something that institutes the destruction of our people. And especially with black Americans. Most black American people are Christians, which to me is funny because if you go to a random church on any given Sunday and you ask most of the black people there if they've ever read the Bible, front to back, completely, most of them will tell you no. And to me, once black people start reading this book, they would find out how dangerous it could be once you start taking it beyond what it is. The Bible is a book of murder, betrayal, deception, glory. But at the end of the day, it is a book. When you talk about events like the Passover, which is a story about how God came down and killed Egyptian babies, Egyptian children, every firstborn, every pet, because these Hebrews were enslaved by the Egyptians, even though it's no proof that they were ever enslaved, beyond the Bible, of course. But when the Greeks came down or when the Romans came down and started murdering them by the masses. And the Romans were even the ones who killed Jesus. Yet God never laid a finger on them. How crazy is that? This book literally curses everybody with melanin in their skin. When our ancestors were being hung and tortured for reading a science book or a math book, they were given the Bible and forced to read it. That's the only time that they got off from working, was being able to go to church. And still, to this day, our people run to this book, run to churches, looking for shelter, looking for safe haven. To me, that is severe Stockholm Syndrome, especially in the information age that we live in today with the internet and all the research that we can do and that's available at our fingertips. And in all of these major religions that Black Americans follow, God makes it clear anybody who doesn't follow this God or put this God first, their lands are okay to be conquered. You can make the people slaves, you can take their land, shit, you can rape their women, which was probably just stories of men who protected their lands or conquered other lands, which would be the same as us honoring George Washington that way because he didn't get conquered by the British. Now, even if you still want to believe these stories, that's not my concern. Where my problem comes in is how much of a detriment it is for us to unify and come together. Religion is one of the points where we get stuck on every single time. When people try to talk about solutions, you run back to the same old book, but not everybody's going to come together on this particular book. Even the people who do agree and believe in this book don't agree on the same things about the book. So how can all of us unite on this one thing? But these people really believe that's the only way. When I personally couldn't believe in the ideology that puts one sex over the other. I don't think the male is more important than the female or the female more important than the male. I couldn't follow any doctrine that put one over the other. That would create a divide every single time. When reality and nature shows us that it takes a man and a woman equally to create a family, to create a baby. A man can't have a baby by himself and a woman can't have a baby by himself. So one is not more important than the other. And that is a major problem I have with religion, me personally, and why I couldn't follow a lot of these doctrines. And just the overall way that the church is being used beyond the doctrine. You have politicians coming to black churches every 4 years and the pastor just smiling, letting them on stage. And our people give away our money so easily. I'm not saying, stop giving your money away to anybody, but direct it in the right directions. And I'm not saying that you have to stop being a consumer, but direct your money in the right direction. We have given black churches billions and billions and billions of dollars, yet I don't see any jobs being created. I mean, there are some preachers who are just genuinely good people who are trying to help and they try to give back to the community, but there are so many that don't. Now, if we was just giving this money strictly to create our own infrastructure, $420 billion would have went a long fucking way by now. Over the last 30 years, we would have been in a different position than we are in today. Now, one area that our ancestors wasn't as successful in is in protection, and especially getting caught up into this Christian belief where you're stuck on the passages that they give you, like turn the other cheek, and all the non-violent passages. They never even really mention the eye for an eye passage, but of course the turn your other cheek passage is the one you hear all the time. And, they love to throw Martin Luther King in our faces, but you can't turn the other cheek with a bullet in your head. And a lot of people say if you take away religion, well, what are you going to follow? As if you need a doctrine to tell you how to live your life. Well, how about this? Do unto others as you would have done unto you. That's not religion. Religion is do what I tell you to do or else. But once people start realizing that The power doesn't come from an outside source. It comes from within. Once we realize that, we'll figure out that we can create whatever we want to create. We're in a position where we can create a government the way we want. We can create a society the way we want. We can create religious practices the way that we want, in a way that would be the most successful with all of the knowledge that we have over time. We can take all of the good things and incorporate it. We can leave out all of the bad things that we know would harm us. Once we realize we have the power in our own hands, we'll be able to get rid of this whole divide and conquer mindset that we have overnight, because we'll all be aligned with one thing that's not imposing on another person's thing. And you can keep your own religious practices if you want. I'm not about destroying people's beliefs, but I am about creating what we need to create to be able to get out of the situation that we are in and be able to empower ourselves. So I want to hear what you got to say.
What was said, and we're going to deal with that. There's been a question about context in reference to the statements that were made. In my opinion, I feel that no matter what context you try to take those comments in, the statements were inexcusable and inappropriate.
But you're not black. Remember, we only kill black people. Yeah, we only kill black people, right? All the videos you've seen, have you seen black people get killed? You have.
But those comments have now caused the men and women who are currently working on the street right now today to go out and attempt to regain the public trust that was lost by those comments. There's really no place for these types of comments in law enforcement. Surely not in this department, law enforcement in general. I've known Lieutenant Abbott for a number of years, and I've always perceived him to be an honorable man, but he made a mistake. I don't know what's in his heart, but I certainly know what came out of his mouth, and it's inexcusable, and we have to take appropriate action. The recommendation is to terminate his employment from the Cobb County Police Department. And certainly there is a process that we will have to go through in order to do that, but we are certainly moving forward with that process.
Would you like to hear what I think God would say to the churches in America? He'd say, you boast that you serve me, but in truth you serve your own ego.
Tradition of the black church is to preach the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Churches have bills to pay. And the only way to take care of this is to make certain that members of that congregation are giving properly.
To become a megachurch pastor, you have to keep the majority of the money that you collect, and they should be happy about it.
These ministers are prosperous because of this congregation, knowing all along that there are barriers that are going to prevent members of that congregation from achieving the same thing.
And it's not just the money they make, it's the way they're treated in the church. You can't even see them.
You can't even talk to them.
If the feds take a closer look, they will begin to see that the majority of that money is in his control.
And that means you don't have to ever report anything to anybody.
It's beyond scrutiny because churches aren't required to file tax returns.
A minister who does not say anything about anybody or any cause and just simply preach a gospel that he is not willing to put into action is a minister is not worth having.
After you spend your time and your years screaming and shouting in church, praying and praying and praying, and you are not moving into another direction, is something wrong with you or something wrong with the ministry that you are a part of? There was something in the message of Christianity. There was something in the religion of the oppressors that they saw that was deeper than even the oppressor's presentation of that. I mean, for example, the slaves had this saying that there must be another Bible within that Bible.
Black people did not assume the Christianity of their oppressors. The Christianity that black people assumed was a Christianity that they created out of the interaction with the Christianity that was presented to them and the Christianity that they re-evaluated and reconfigured to fit their needs.
Charleston, South Carolina. In 1815, the enslaved black population outnumbered the free white population by more than 2 to 1. On Sunday mornings, black people listened quietly to pro-slavery sermons in the sanctuaries of the city's white churches. On the surface, the Africans seemed to accept these preachments without open confrontation. But on weeknights and Sunday evenings, it was a different story. During slavery, secret meetings served as a place where black women and men could worship God in the way that they saw fit. Their songs recalled stories from the Bible, triumphs of the weak over the mighty. Ceremonially, they traveled through time, casting themselves as God's chosen people of centuries past. At the heart of this experience was the ring shout, the sacred ritual in which worshipers shift their feet and move their bodies in a circle to symbolize the connection between past, present, and future. Over time, the meeting places came to be known as praise houses. The praise house family functioned as the secret religious societies had in Africa. Members were initiated in after months of reporting their dreams and going into the woods at night to seek God. It was a bond that was as strong as the bonds of one's birth family.
I volunteered to go to church. They wanted to see if they would let blacks into the church because blacks wasn't allowed. They said it was private property. Blacks was not allowed. So we had made arrangement to go to church that morning. So as we walked up there, some of the members had their hands out, like, this is private property. You can't come in here. You can't go to this church. You got to turn around. So we say we want to worship God. We want to go to church and we want to worship God. They say, well, this is private property. By that time, the police came. They say, well, if you don't get off of this property, we're taking you to jail. We didn't move. They got us, led us to the paddy wagon, and when we got there, they had dogs in there.
I think here at First United Methodist Church, we need to be forgiven. We need to say we are sorry, and we need to experience forgiveness. And we need to experience the unconditional love that some of you have shown us just by being here tonight. And we need to show you the unconditional love that we didn't 40 years ago. But we need to do it tonight. I want to say to Barbara, to Audrey, to Janice, and really to the community, on behalf of our church, we want to say to you today, we're so sorry that you experienced pain and rejection here, that you were turned away, that you were arrested. We're sorry that we did not welcome you and the Christ in you, and we did not display Christ in us. We regret our actions. We regret the hurt that we caused you. We ask your forgiveness. We welcome you as sisters in Christ and as friends. By the grace of God, we welcome you. God bless you. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry, Audrey. God bless you. Bless you, Barbara. Thank you.
Direct from our newsroom in Washington, in color, this is the CBS Evening News with Walter Cronkite and Russ Hodge in Memphis, Tennessee, Dan Rather in New York, Bernard Kalb in Saigon, Marvin Kalb in Wellington, New Zealand, and Bert Quint in Quezon, South Vietnam.
Good evening. Dr. Martin Luther King, the apostle of nonviolence in the civil rights movement, has been shot to death in Memphis, Tennessee. Police have issued an all-points bulletin for a well-dressed young white man seen running from the scene. Officers also reportedly chased and fired on a radio-equipped car containing 2 white men. Dr. King was standing on the balcony of a second-floor hotel room tonight when, according to a companion, a shot was fired from across the street. In the friend's words, the bullet exploded in his face. Police, who have been keeping a close watch over the Nobel Peace Prize winner because of Memphis' turbulent racial situation, were on the scene almost immediately. They rushed the 39-year-old Negro leader to a hospital where he died of a bullet wound in the neck. Police said they found a high-powered hunting rifle about a block from the hotel, but it was not immediately identified as the murder weapon. Mayor Henry Loeb has reinstated the dusk-to-dawn curfew he imposed on the city last week when a march led by Dr. King erupted in violence. Governor Buford Ellington has called out 4,000 National Guardsmen, and police report that the murder has touched off sporadic acts of violence in a Negro section of the city. In a nationwide television address, President Johnson expressed the nation's shock.
America is shocked and saddened by the brutal slaying tonight of Dr. Martin Luther King. I ask every citizen to reject the blind violence that has struck Dr. King, who lived by nonviolence.
Dr. King had returned to Memphis only yesterday, determined to prove that he could lead a peaceful mass march in support of striking sanitation workers, most of whom are Negroes. Dr. King had this to say last night about the situation in Memphis.
Maybe I could understand the denial of certain basic First Amendment privileges because they haven't committed themselves to that over there. But somewhere I read of the freedom of assembly. Somewhere I read of the freedom of speech. Somewhere I read of the freedom of press. Somewhere I read that the greatness of America is the right to protest far right.
There was shock in Harlem tonight when word of Dr. King's murder reached the nation's largest Negro community. Men, women, and children poured into the streets. They appeared dazed. Many were crying. A young Negro said Dr. King didn't really have to go back to Memphis. Maybe he wanted to prove something.